You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Glad you could join me here today on this Total Wellness Tuesday show, where we are going to be going over one of the main ways that builds up inflammation in the body and creates the aging process. Now, a lot of these things we don't see happening day to day and right before our eyes, but they start to build up over time, and they manifest themselves as stiff muscles, aching joints, show wrinkles on the skin, thinning hair, poor hair, skin, nail growth, even hardening of the arteries or high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, any type of heart-based disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and even cancer. So what we're talking about today are the process of inflammation. You know, every time I say on a podcast or an interview or I write it on social media that inflammation is not a disease, someone always gets upset about it. But here's the thing. I'm not saying that you don't have inflammation. I don't deny that. I agree that inflammation is indicated in about 90% of all diseases out there. The problem is, what's creating the inflammation? Nobody's denying the inflammation is there. But the difference with me is that I want to ask why the inflammation is there. Because I don't want to treat the inflammation. That's not what a true integrative health practitioner does, or a natural health practitioner. What they're always asking is, why the inflammation? If you have headaches, okay, we could give you something for headaches, naturally or pharmaceutical based. But why don't we ask, why the headaches? We'll give you something in the short term, sure, no doubt about it. We can give you something that works really well as a natural anti-inflammatory for a headache. But why are you getting the headaches? That's what we want to know, because that's the real issue. So on today's show, I want to talk about the molecule that leads to a lot of this inflammation, which then leads to dis-ease. And I want to classify aging as a disease. I want to classify it as something that we all have, that we're all moving forward towards, which none of us like to talk about, but that is eventually, hopefully for most people, 100 years old or maybe more, but our eventual demise. And here's the thing. We can slow that down, just like we can slow down inflammation. So we can actually help our own anti-aging based protocol, which this is what that's all about, right? So people say, oh, there's no such thing as anti-aging. There is, because you're either moving faster towards aging or you're slowing it down. And the slowing down is anti-aging. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But by doing that, by slowing down the aging process, we have to slow down inflammation. We don't want to get rid of inflammation. We want to modulate it. So the molecule, we'll call the aging molecule. The aging molecule that we're talking about, and we're going to get a little bit in depth today, but we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole. But the aging molecule is reactive oxygen species. We'll refer to it sometimes as ROS. And all that means is it's part of mitochondrial oxidative metabolism. But really, what does that mean? Well, it means just almost like it says, is that it is a molecule. Right? It's an unstable molecule that contains oxygen. That's all that you need to know. It's a molecule in the body, sometimes even referred to as an oxygen radical. And what it does is that it's bouncing around and moving around your body, causing damage to proteins, to your DNA, RNA, and it can even cause cell death. So as it's bouncing around, causing damage in your body, that creates inflammation. So we're going to talk about today what increases reactive oxygen species, or we'll just call them reactive oxygen molecules, a couple different ways to say it, inside of your body so that you know how to combat that. And by doing that, even if you don't have the disease right now, is that you'll be slowing the aging process and dampening the effects of inflammation. So this is important for everyone out there. And I try to follow these principles to the best of my ability. Now, this is building off of a show, and I hope that you go back and you do listen to this if you haven't listened to it yet. And it was episode 1182. So if you go to stephencabral.com/1182, that is going to be the show on the one missing factor in all wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging protocols that almost no one talks about or no experts know. That was episode 1182. And I go through hormetic stressors on that podcast. It's extremely important because, again, it's something that no one is talking about. Because at a cursory level, we have many, gurus out there talking about sleep, and they're talking about stress, and they're talking about fasting, and they're talking about, how much is too much, and doing all of these things. But what they don't understand is that the body can only react in a healthy way based on its level of adaptability to stress. Now, I know that was a mouthful. So what I'm going to say is this. Everybody has their own rain barrel, right? And it fills up faster the more stress that you place in it. So, for example, an easy way to fill up your rain barrel and get some type of dis-ease in the body is eating a poor diet of processed food, not sleeping a lot, have a very stressful relationship, have a very stressful career, and feel like you're hopeless, that there's nothing good coming in the future. It's a really fast way to get sick. I mean, that's really it, to fill up your rain barrel and get some type of dis-ease, okay? Both mentally and typically physically. So what we want to think about is, all right, well, that of course is not something that we want. But each one of us, by sometimes doing a lot of healthy things in our life, also begin to build up these reactive oxygen species. So one of the things that I want to share with you, and this is why it's just so important to look at this. A lot of people say, oh, it's no big deal. You could sleep 6 hours a night. You could sleep 8 hours a night. It doesn't matter, your sleep cycles, all of that. You could sleep maybe a couple hours in the afternoon, but it does. And I want to show you something. And because we know how all of this works already through proven scientific research, and it's not just in the natural health field. When I quote research, it's always within the realm of conventional medicine, conventional-based science, right? Because we really only have, how I look at it, as one form of science, but then we have other ways of looking at the world, and that's okay as well. But here's the thing. When we get too little sleep in a given night, and the night starts, this hopefully is irrefutable, but I know that it isn't for a lot of people out there who are, again, I say like so-called experts that are giving you bad advice. Nighttime starts when it starts to get dark. And I know, and again, I feel like that should be common sense, but it's not. Because sometimes we get so wrapped up in our research, we're like, no, the night starts when you go to bed. That is not when the night starts. We have day and we have night. As it starts to get dark, it is night. So night starts a little later in the day in the summer. That's how it works. Day starts a little later in the day when it's summer. We have more light. As humans, we have co-evolved with nature around us. Nature's always been, I guess, as it is. So we're evolving and we have evolved with it. Meaning that we typically need a little less sleep in the summer months. And we need a little bit more sleep in the winter months. And our night starts a little bit earlier. Now, I don't want to get too deep into bedtimes. But for most people, melatonin is going to start being produced when cortisol starts to drop. And cortisol should really be lowered by 5, 6 o'clock or so at night. And it hits its zenith, its peak, its lowest point at around 9:30 p.m., which is when melatonin is beginning to truly spike up. So we should be in bed between 9 and 10 p.m. That's the ideal time. There will always be people out there who try to refute that. And they will show data saying, no, look at these people with high cortisol at night. And I will say, yes, the lab is correct. We test that. We see that all the time in our practice. I agree with you. But that's a dysfunctional diurnal rhythm. they shouldn't be producing cortisol at night when their body should be producing melatonin, because there's no more blue light in nature, and there should be no more stress in a normal culture and civilization. Now, the difference is TVs, your phone, iPads, lights in your rooms, night lights, all of that. It allows you to, and stress, keep that cortisol going. But think about it. If you're outside and you're in nature, couple hundred, really, we're not looking at that far back before electricity, right? What would you have? A candle, right? Like, a little bit of light there? There would be not much to do. You would also understand that you are not a nocturnal being. So you would find a safe place at night if you were in nature, because the other nocturnal animals have a big advantage on you. So you find a safe place. You go to sleep. You go to sleep early. Why? Because if you're in nature, that sunrise comes up early. 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., right? Depending on the time of the year. So you're going to be up early. There's no blinds, right? There are no drapes. There's no curtains. You're waking up with that sunlight in nature. And that's a beautiful thing. That's great. What does it do? Well, triggers thyroid to rise naturally, triggers cortisol to rise naturally, decreases melatonin. We're not as groggy when we wake up. We wake up naturally. It's an easier way of actually living. So we go to bed between 9 and 10. We wake up somewhere between 5 and 6, or 5:30 and 6:37, right around there. Again, depending on the natural light. But instead of turning this into a sleep-based podcast, what I want to tell you is this. When we're thrown off from that natural sleep cycle, what happens? Well, here's exactly what happens. And this is why I've been talking about this research since, I can't even tell you, 2006, is that we've found that people who do not get enough sleep at night, meaning 6 hours or less, they show higher levels of blood sugar in the morning. That means they're moving towards prediabetes or diabetes, regardless of their food. Okay, this is important to look at it. Why? Because when you don't get enough sleep, a couple things happen. Insulin sensitivity, it goes down. Body's not as good at regulating blood sugar. What else happens? ROS goes up. Reactive oxygen species goes up. Inflammation goes up. When inflammation goes up, I did a previous podcast on this. I even did a video on it at stephencabral.com/BRMI. And when I did that video, I showed how inflammation in and of itself can trigger stress and cortisol, which can trigger blood sugar, which can actually, raise blood sugar levels without you even eating any food. And nobody talks about this. So this is an important thing to look at. And I'm going to pull this together for you at the end, but I want you to understand is that aging and inflammation and all of these things, there's actually an underlying root cause. Now, can we totally stop the aging process? Not that I know of yet. Haven't seen it happen yet. But I have seen that we can slow it down. I can look at telomere length. I can look at telomere studies. I can look at all of these things through Ayurvedic medicine. Detoxification, right? It's what I'm doing this week. I'm on day 2 of my 7-day detox. And I do that every 12 weeks to include some fasting, to improve autophagy, to actually decrease inflammatory levels in my body, to re-regulate blood sugar to a deeper level, to help with those long-term hemoglobin A1C numbers. And you don't even know if this is all new to you, that's okay. I invite you to go back to stephencabral.com/podcasts and take a little deeper dive. Go back, listen to previous podcasts. This is all free functional medicine, integrative health medicine that will allow you to truly take control of your own health and do anything that you want with your mind and with your body. So as we're talking about fasting, since I am now almost, I'm 48 hours into this as you're listening to this show. So why would I do that? Well, here's why. And let me talk about fasting specifically because I want to talk about a few of these. But when you fast just the right amount, so just the right amount for your body, reactive oxygen species actually goes down. Impressive, right? Inflammation actually goes down. This is why when people say, all you need to do is have some lemon water in the morning. Listen, I love lemon water like the next person. Been talking about it for 20 years. I'm a fan. But when you do a real detox and you include real fasting-based principles, you can actually lower inflammation caused by free radical damage, right? Free radicals are the oxygen species. What else does it do? It improves insulin sensitivity. So if you're looking for a way to improve aging, decrease inflammation, and all factors for disease and mortality, you want to improve insulin sensitivity, and you want to lower free radical damage caused by reactive oxygen species. Now, here's the really interesting thing. There are a lot of people right now talking about fasting, which is great. But when they talk about fasting, things always start to get a little bit crazy. That's the world that we live in. And I love people talking about it, but let's do it from a healthy way. I believe that there are a lot of people talking about fasting, and they're not ill-intentioned. I repeat, they're not ill-intentioned, but they're not as well-informed as they should be. And so they're telling people that everybody should be doing these 16-hour fasts every single day, nonstop, right? Or they should be doing an 18-hour fast. Or they should be doing a 21-hour fast and only eat in 1 hour a day. Here's the problem. That does not work for the majority of people. Let me tell you exactly what happens when we fast too much on a daily basis. Our bodies actually do a couple interesting things. It increases reactive oxygen species, which means now we age at a faster rate. Why would that happen? Let me give you a couple other things, though. You actually reduce natural growth hormone in the body. So we can increase growth hormone naturally by a normal fast, a daily 12-hour fast, maybe 13, 14 hours, some days 16 hours, okay? But here's the other thing. When we fast too long, too many days in a row, we tell our body it's in starvation mode. We tell it it's in a survival-based mode. Our body begins to catabolize our own muscle tissue, our own bone tissue. It can lead to greater osteoporosis. But does osteoporosis happen overnight or even in a year? No, it takes months and years to set in. So this is the issue. You can never relate what you're doing to today to what happens in 2 years from now. So all I want people to do is be smart today. But here's what else happens. As you get into that survival-based mode, it's part of the adrenal axis, or the HPA axis, which just stands for hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It puts you in an elevated state, a heightened awareness. Now, it makes total sense. If you don't have food, if your body believes that it's starving, it becomes more vigilant. And the way that it becomes more vigilant is it gets more tunnel vision through increased fight or flight. Now, you might just feel it as, I feel fantastic, be right? Because you're hypervigilant. But remember, that comes at a longer-term cost. And that longer-term cost is increased aging, and also it will eventually be lowered metabolism because you will lose bone and muscle mass. This is an issue. Remember, too much of something that's good becomes bad. And it's always the case. That's always been the case. So for fasting, and again, I could do more shows on fasting, normal fasting, 12 hours a day, 13, 14 hours a day for most people maximum. Some people can go 16 hours, but it has to be the right person in a relaxed environment in the day because most people skip breakfast when it's the meal that you shouldn't skip. I'll talk more about that in the future. Really important to look at that. Okay, then once a week, you could do a 24-hour fast. What are we doing? One day, not every day, 1 day a week. And then every 3 months or so, you could do a 2 to 3 day fast. We do our community detox. I do a 7-day detox because I've been doing it now every 12 weeks for a long time. If you've never done one before, you can do a 7, 14, or 21 day. And each week, you have a couple days of fasting. It's what regulates the body to a faster degree better than anything I've ever seen in the world. And I've been doing this for a long time. Before I came up with the Equilibrium Nutrition, Functional Medicine Detox, I was using many other detoxes, just not to this level. They just don't do it in this way. There are a lot of pseudo detoxes out there. You know it works by understanding the principles behind a detox, if it ramps up phase 1 and phase 2 detox. And if you'd like to learn more details on how to complete a functional medicine detox, simply go to stephencabral.com/823. And if you want to see that if you feel like your rain barrel is getting full, you can simply go to stephencabral.com/846 and you can find out essentially what your total toxic load is. I've done many podcasts, of course, on detoxes. The top 20 do's and don'ts of detoxing was on episode 837. But I want you to learn more about it because it incorporates fasting, and every great detox incorporates fasting. And the only time to do a longer fast, and only if your body's strong enough, would be once a year, and that could be a little longer fast. I no longer do the longer fast at this time. I just have so much going on with work and with travel. Being able to have that much downtime for a week, for that quiet, to do a longer fast where I'm not eating would not be ideal at this moment. But I do my 2.5 day or so with the 7-day detox, where you're not completely not eating, you're actually getting nutrients for your body though, with 4 shakes per day, and that's every 12 weeks. So that's that. Okay, but here's the thing. That's why I wanted to bring that up with fasting. You can overdo it, but nobody ever talks about that, right? And so let me just give you one more normal one too. Okay, here's one with exercise. If you exercise too much, it actually increases blood sugar. And I've talked about this, and again, like nobody believed it in the beginning, and then I had so many people write in and said, you know what, you're right. When I do a really intense, hard workout, over the top hard, I test my blood sugar. I didn't eat before, and it's way over 100. And because I've been doing this again for years with diabetics and really looking at and monitoring in with continuous glucose monitors, etc. The other thing is this, though. If you work out too hard, too much on the body, a lot of free radical damage. It actually decreases insulin sensitivity. It can raise blood sugar, right? So we look at that. But if you exercise too little, it does the same exact thing. So where's the sweet spot? Right in the middle. How do you know what it is for you? How sore are you the next day? How hard did you push? What's your heart rate variability? What's your resting heart rate? You can check all of these things. Another one too. People talk about alcohol. Oh, is alcohol good or bad? Well, I've talked about this. Depending on your genes, even a couple glasses is bad if you have the APO4 gene, right? It just causes inflammation, like unchecked. Couple glasses a week, maximum. What does it do? Well, a little bit, just a little bit, can actually decrease reactive oxygen species. Not a bad thing. Too much, what does it do? It increases inflammation. Actually wipes out a lot of your B vitamins. Nobody talks about this, but the antagonist to your B vitamins is alcohol. Why do people feel so hungover? Part of it is just depletion, right? That's a big part of it. It's not just dehydration. It's depletion of a lot of B vitamins. People take B vitamins, methylated B vitamins, and vitamin C and all those things with dinner before a night of alcohol. They feel a little bit better the next day. So I want you to look at it this. And a lot of people say, right, everything in moderation. It's true, but we don't know what moderation is, right? We have no idea what moderation is because it's always based on our unique bioindividuality. Before, I couldn't even walk 3,000 steps in a day, which is nothing, by the way. It's about 40 minutes of walking. Or I would get sick the next day. So what was creating reactive oxygen species in my body? Probably anything over 1,500 steps. Now I can do 12,000 steps a day, 13,000 steps a day, and it's no big deal. After that, yeah, I might start to feel like, oh, wow, that was a lot today, right? That was a lot today. Like if I'm on a trip, I'm visiting someplace, I do a ton of walking, I can feel that the next day, okay? A little bit too much. How do I know? Well, it's based on me. The exercise too. How much exercise can I do? Well, it's partially based on how well did I eat that day? Am I fasting that day? Well, then my exercise tolerance is going to go down. Or what about just look at my sleep? Did I sleep the night before? That's why I am into this new technology, and I'm trying out so much of it right now for you so that I can tell you there are actually monitors that will be able to tell you how well and how recovered you are. I believe this is one of the next steps, and I'm going to be on the forefront of that, telling you what I believe the best technology is. And it's pretty phenomenal. But now let's get to this. So again, how much is too much? We need to look at our body. We need to lab test. We need to get a sense of self-awareness for how we feel. Look at those types of things. But there is always a middle ground. And remember, we'll go back, listen to the previous podcast, which was episode 1182 is the podcast you'll want to find on, really discovering your level, all right? Because I give you all the factors right there. So here's what I want you to do. No matter who you are, no matter whether you know you're in that sweet spot or not, we can reduce reactive oxygen species and improve aging in a couple simple ways. Well, one is, of course, exercise, but don't overdo it. Sleep, that's a big one as well. How much sleep? Based on most people's body, it's somewhere between 7 hours and 9 hours. The ectomorph or the Vata body type, or even those that are more active, need 8 to 9. Those bodies that might be a little bit more kapha-like or a little bit more overweight or less active, more like 7 to 8 hours, okay? So stay within that sweet spot. If you can, go to bed between 9 and 10. Allow your body to wake up naturally in the morning. It should wake up to light, ideally. Use a wake light if needed. So here's the thing, though. We can do a lot of this through our nutrition. And this is why I also get worried. If people are fasting too much or they're not eating 3 meals per day, are they able to get in all the nutrients they need? And there are ways to do it. So I'm not saying that there's not. But I need you to understand is that we know how to decrease reactive oxygen species through antioxidants. And the easiest way to get these antioxidants are through plant-based foods. I'm going to read you a list right now. And let me know in that list what you hear over and over, okay? Like really start to think about this. I'm going to read a list right now to you. Strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, cherries, citrus fruits, dark leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, tomatoes, olives, right? Think about all those. What did we just hear? I heard berries, right? At least 5 different times. Dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, chard, all of those are great, right? All the dark leafy greens. What did I just name, though? I named a rainbow of colors. So when I tell people to eat a predominantly plant-based diet, I'm doing it, it's because it's the only way that we really know for sure how to slow the aging process and how to slow dis-ease in the body. Everything else is conjecture and limited research guesswork right now. So when you're telling people to load up on a lot of meats or a lot of fats, it doesn't make the list. Fish makes the list, actually. And nuts make the list, okay? Because why? They're full of antioxidants as well. The fish that really make the list, though, are the ones that are high in omega-3 that I talk about quite often. The sardines, the mackerel, the anchovies, the trout, the wild salmon. Those are the ones, especially the orange ones, right? The antioxidant is right in it, right? The anthocyanins and the astaxanthin, right? It's right in there. So here's what I want you to do. Eat any diet that you want in the world. Just make sure that it's predominantly plant-based. You want to have some meat? Fine. You want to have some fish? Fine. And fat as well. But I need you to understand is that we already know how to squelch free radicals. We know how to do that with antioxidants. And yes, vitamin E and vitamin C, vitamin D help with those as well. Melatonin helps with it. Herbs help with it. So that's why I'm a huge advocate of nutritional supplements as well. I use my daily fruit and vegetable blend every single day. It's 22 organic fruits and vegetables, and it's as a powder. I use my daily nutritional support shake every day because it's 100% of all the vitamins and minerals that I need, and it has antioxidants right in there. But I never forget that whole food always comes first because it contains all of the things that we haven't even discovered yet. We know all of the antioxidants in there. So I'm going to use my supplements. I'm not going to pretend like they don't work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to base those, though, around an 80% or maybe more plant-based diet. And I'm going to get 1 or 2 cups of berries every day. I'm going to get 2-3 cups of veggies at all of my meals so that I get my 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Because if you do that, I can guarantee you you're going to be a whole lot healthier and you will begin to reduce the inflammation. You'll begin to reverse the dis-ease process in the body, and you will improve your overall aging. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.